And we are live back post Thanksgiving holiday, Thanksgiving itis, for another episode of the Snobba West Show, kicking it off with our Snobbish Show for our Patreon supporters. Welcome back, everybody, to another week. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Coming off a holiday week, Brother Tech, how was the holiday for you and the fam?
Oh, it was just fine, just fine. Hung out with family. My mom and dad came in town, so got to hang out with them for a little bit. Yeah, so it was nice and cool. Not stressful or anything like that. We all chipped in the kitchen and helped make a dish, so that was cool. Get the whole family involved.
Oh, the kiddos helped make a dish too?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, nice. Pretty chill for me as well. Drove down to my parents um Thursday morning because I found that's the best time to travel, especially when you're going south. Um, it's not as much traffic on the actual day of because most people are already where they want to be that morning. So the cheat code for us is to leave that morning. So that's kind of what we did. Again, food, family. I don't do any of the cooking of the items. I'm your need me to run and pick up something kind of girl. I'm your I can set up some decor kind of girl, but I leave the actual cooking part to the people who have that gifting.
All right.
So that's pretty much my contribution on that side of things. But glad to hear that your mom, your dad came down, good food, all that good stuff.
Yep.
It's always great when everybody has a safe and healthy holiday for sure.
Yep.
Um, all right. Again, we all know what holiday time means, particularly Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. We talked last week about pickups that we were going to consider. Did you pick up anything on the Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales?
Um, I think we talked about this last week. Some of the stuff that we were thinking about getting.
Hmm. Did you get
Um,
any of the actual things you were thinking about?
You know what? Let me go back and look. I can tell you I found I did end up buying on Monday. I found an external drive.
Hmm.
I didn't do the NAS drive for the house because that's what I was looking for. I was looking for a network attached storage for the whole entire house. But messing with Final Cut more, doing a lot more editing, adding a lot more clips means I need more space. And
Hmm.
the pros for Final Cut Pro is that it's super fast, super easy to edit. The negatives is that it takes up a lot of space all the time. So, um, in addition to Snob OS, I do the editing and the uploading and the clips for the Tech John, which is my other tech podcast. So my current hard drive was starting to fill up super fast. So instead of
Hmm.
getting a network attached storage for the house, I'll just deal with my little Mac Mini and my um, desktop storage that's physically connected to the Mac for now. And I went out and bought a 4 terabyte Thunderbolt 4 SSD that runs that I call it my Final Cut Pro drive. So all of my libraries, all of my events, all the Final Cut stuff sits on that drive to where it's a negative because if the drive isn't plugged up, I can't really open Final Cut because it won't be able to find anything. But as soon as
It's mapped to the drive is mapped to Final
yeah,
Cut.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So, but then the second I plug in my drive, all my files and projects and events and things that I was working on
Hmm.
pops up, which is a negative because I got to remember to take that drive if I'm ever, traveling or if
Hmm.
I'm not at the house. If I don't have that drive, I essentially can't do nothing as it relates to Final
Right.
Cut. The benefit is none of those files are on my Mac. And even though I've got a terabyte hard drive, if I start messing with Final Cut enough, all the renderings and all of the background tasks will fill up my hard drive so fast. And I have to remind, and this is a tip, for those Final Cut users. I may use this for the hookup, but I don't think that many people mess with Final Cut Pro like that. But if
Mm-hmm.
you do mess with Final Cut Pro and you find out that, or you discover that you are running out of hard drive space, Final Cut Pro does a lot of background rendering and a lot of background tasks that clog up your hard drive or clog up your Final Cut Pro library or however you organize it. So
Mm-hmm.
the tip would be after a couple of weeks or maybe even a month, I set a reminder for myself to go in, and there's a setting in Final Cut, and I don't have Final Cut open, so I can't look at it right now. So I don't know the exact terminology, but
Mm-hmm.
there's a way to be able to go into each library that you've created and delete those background files, those
Hmm.
background renderings, and that will like shrink your Final Cut Pro library in fourths. But then I fill it right back up. So it's like, I ain't got time for all that. I don't want those files on my hard drive on my computer. So I just bought a 4 terabyte, super fast. It's kind of like one of the fastest. It's a Samsung. You know what? Let me look it up. It is a Samsung T7, I think is the actual. I'll make sure to put a link in the show notes, but it
Okay.
is a Samsung T7 4 terabyte portable solid state drive. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I got it for $190, which normally is like $300. So that's all that to say, that is the one thing that I purchased for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Everything else that I mentioned, the USB-C dock, I purchased that ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter's Apple Watches that they're going to get for Christmas, I got those ahead of time. I was also looking for an Apple Pencil, but I'm gonna wait on that because technology is something I like to give to people.
Mm-hmm.
Technology may not be stuff that people want to
People like
get.
to receive.
So I'm like, you know what? I have this master plan on how I'm gonna buy this pencil and hand me down the second one. But it's like, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
That's something I want to do. Let me
Mm-hmm.
hold off on that and find something that the people actually ask for. And I just had to be okay with giving it to them.
Yep. Well, I am a bad capitalist. I did not buy any of the things on my Black Friday list.
Okay.
First, the items that I wanted from Apple were not covered under the shopping event, which is basically you're getting, um, gift card back for whatever you
Mm-hmm.
purchased. So it was in the range of what, 25, 50, and 100. So none of the two of the things that I wanted, they did not have covered under the shopping event. So I was like, well, something I'll get. It's no rush because there's really no benefit to me either way. Whether I get them today or whether I get them tomorrow, it's no rush. And then the other thing, I wanted to upgrade my TV because I kind of want to do like the whole sound system thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then the whole thing, and I was going to get it from Target because that's where I saw the best deal. Turns out it wasn't really a sale either.
Okay.
So there was a TikTok going around where someone went to the Black Friday TVs and they saw
Mm-hmm.
the price and it has like Black Friday,
Mm-hmm.
$449. And then they slid the Black Friday, um,
Tag.
flyer price
Mm-hmm.
on there to reveal the same price for the TV that it was before.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing that changed was a label that said
Mm-hmm.
Black Friday. So
Yep.
I was like, that's a scam. So I was like, if it's not going to really benefit me, why am I going to go through the hassle of trying to go on the app, buy it, get it shipped, and are they going to have enough in stock? I might as well wait until the following week
Mm-hmm.
when it's less drama and chaos. And there you go. So yeah, and what was the other thing? I think those were I want to get a couple things from Apple. They weren't covered. I wanted to get either a new TV or curved monitor. And after the whole debacle with the Apple shopping event and with the Target thing, I didn't even really look too much on the Amazon Black Friday shopping because I was like, you know what? I'm over it. I'm just going to relax and enjoy my time because all the hassle of going to the app, looking to, I was over it. By the time I got around to actually buying stuff, I was over it. I was like, maybe I'll check on Cyber Monday and see what they have. And then I was like, you know what? I really don't care. I just, I really don't care. So,
Yeah, with Amazon, it's really hard in general to search for what you for not search for what you want. It's very hard on Amazon to just browse like you're shopping.
hmm,
Amazon works best when you know what you're looking for.
right.
Because it can it's like Netflix. You sit on there for 20 minutes,
And you're
analysis
just
paralysis.
scrolling
Yeah,
or swiping. Yeah.
same thing with Amazon. So I typically just don't randomly shop on Amazon, even if there's a Black Friday or what's the other event that they have in the
Prime Day.
summertime, Prime Day. If there isn't something that I'm looking for, I'm not really like, ooh, let's see what they got. It's like, man, I really don't care.
Yeah. And that's pretty much where I was. I was like over it. And there was a lot of debate online. They were talking about how, the Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the purchasing power that people bought all these things. And basically, most of the articles skew the data to make it seem as if we had a robust economy. I think they were saying it was like 8% or 9% above the pricing last year, but that was just for like online sales. It didn't include like in-store sales, and when you included those, it was technically a negative. And then the biggest thing that they were saying is that there was a 47% increase in the pay buy now pay later space. So it wasn't as if people were actual spending money on hand. They were spending money basically on layaway, which is all to me what the pay buy now pay later thing is. It's just a digital form of layaway.
Well,
So
it's
they were
only
make
only in the sense that you don't pay for it all at one time, but it is not in the sense of traditional layaway because back in the day when we was growing up, my parents would go to Kmart. Well, my parents went to Kmart and Sears, of
and
course
buy
those,
all this, pick out all
and,
the stuff.
and then put 20% down or $20
Hmm.
on it, pay over time. Once you've paid in full, then you get to take
Then
the
you get
stuff
the
home
item.
with
Yeah.
Affirm, with Apple Pay Later and Klarna, all these other ones. You put a little bit down, if anything at all. I don't know if you got to make your first payment or not. I've never done them, but
Yeah,
you
I
get
don't
it
know.
immediately. You get the stuff
Yeah.
immediately. And then on the back end, you're like, oh, okay, I'll pay it. Which
Yeah.
again, subconsciously, you look at your bank account. You've got this laptop, you got this phone, whatever the case may be. You got it in your hands. It's tangible. You look in your bank account, it's like, oh, I've got money. And then you go spend it on something else, or you do another Affirm, or you do another version. Then you look up, them things start hitting your bank account,
Yeah.
and your check ain't hit the bank account yet. So now you're struggling. But
Yeah.
anything that these companies can do to psychologically trick you into spending more money,
Yeah.
they'll do it. And unfortunately, we fall for it every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, that's why I say it's like the digital layaway. It's the new fangled version of it. I think, companies have realized that the old way that you're mentioning, it worked then, but now people are very much, I need my instant gratification. And
Hmm.
to continue to feed that instant gratification, they had to kind of tweak their model to work in today's time. So, and like I said, it was very interesting that when they broke it down, there was a 40 almost 50% increase of people that were using and purchasing Black Friday items on your pay later type companies like you mentioned, Affirm, Klarna, Apple Pay Later, those type of companies. So they were making it seem like, oh, everything's fine, there are no problems, people are still spending money, but are they? Or are you just kind of showing what you want to show? And that kind of leads into the next thing. I don't know if you're on Twitter. There was this woman who I think it may have started on TikTok, but of course I see it on Twitter because I don't be over on TikTok like that. And this woman, she was online crying about, how hard it is and, basically living paycheck to paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
She has a good job. She's a registered nurse. Her husband has a good job. They have a house. She said it's not a huge house. It's a 1-story ranch. They don't live above their means. They mind their P's and Q's and make sure they stay on budget. And she was like, after we paid all our bills, we only had $200 left. So the biggest debate online was, well, if you paid all your things, you still got $200 left, then technically it's not paycheck to paycheck. So then it was this whole diatribe where people were basically having a pour off where it was like, well, I don't have any money after my
Right.
paycheck. I'm in the hole. And she's talking about this and that, the other. And so it kind of led to this who's really poor,
Mm-hmm.
what's really considered poor. Yes, she's an RN. She said both her and her husband, make good money. So it's that whole concept of what's poor and what's not. And it was just it kind of feeds into that conversation we just had about the numbers that they were showing for Black Friday to prove that the economy was robust and great and all those things. But of course, they kind of manipulated the numbers to kind of suit the narrative that they were trying to make. So it was really this whole thing going on, this conversation going on the heels of what was being said about Black Friday, as it relates to people's spending habits, how they're maintaining their day-to-day life, how expensive life is, how prices have gone up, and just people really just trying to make a living, provide for themselves, and live a decent life.
So, you mentioned you really don't be on TikTok like that. I really don't be on Twitter like that as much for that very reason, because
Hmm.
in my opinion, it seems like on Twitter, what people want to do is, I call it dunking on people,
Hmm.
and anytime you put out any sort of commentary as it relates to your personal life, it's one thing to say a hot take, uh, mashed potatoes, is not throw away mashed potatoes for Thanksgiving. That's a hot take to where people are normally going to jump on that because spicy stuff gets engagement, right?
Hmm.
And I get that. But what I've learned on Twitter is it don't matter what you say, especially if it's personal. Like you mentioned, the young lady said, me and my husband, we work good jobs, we're doing the best we can, but at the end of the pay period, we only have this small amount of money and we're basically living paycheck to paycheck. That is a personal story. That's something specific to them that they didn't. I didn't see the video, or I didn't watch the. I don't know anything about this versus you just saying to me,
Hmm.
but it sounds like they didn't say all of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck because whatever the case may be. She said, me and my husband,
Hmm.
X, Y, and Z. As a result, we barely have enough money after the bills are paid. Right? To me, that's like, oh, okay, that's something specific to you. That seems like that's your particular issue. That's not how that works over Twitter. Twitter is like, anytime anybody says anything, it's like, no, let me refute what you just said with my own personal thing, right?
Right.
Not a, in general, this is how Americans feel. This is the general American sentiment. While it may not be everybody's personal struggle, you get the idea of this is how most Americans are running their finances. After the bills are paid, if they have a little bit left over, technically they're doing good, but technically not, because if emergency happens,
Right.
you back in the hole, right? No, that's sensible. Twitter is
Yeah.
not sensible. So what you're going to get is a result of a bunch of people using their own personal experiences, like you said, this pour off to where people say, "Girl, that ain't nothing." If I'm lucky to have a negative balance in my account, then you rich compared to me, and that's the example that I hear or get when you say anything on Twitter. So it's like
Yeah.
it makes sense that people are, it seems weird that people are not congratulating each other for positive things. We're
Mm-hmm.
all trying to dunk on each other by using our personal experiences to make it seem like you complaining when she probably wasn't complaining. Well, she was probably venting and sharing her
She was
story,
venting, yes.
but at the same time, she ain't like, admonishing people who are living above their, who are
Right.
financially in a better position. It wasn't like she was saying, "Oh, y'all should be lucky that because we're living paycheck to paycheck, you should be lucky if you've got money in the bank, emergency fund, yada yada yada."
Yeah.
She sounded like she was just like, "This is our current situation, and this is where we are," and everybody's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you think you better than us?" It's like, wait a minute now, and that's why I left Twitter.
How do we get here?
Right.
But yeah, and it's exactly what you're saying. There were people in the comments saying the same thing you said about if there's an emergency, then they're screwed,
Hmm.
or $200 left over for 10 days for 4 people, so it's a husband and wife and 2 kids,
Hmm.
and so it's one of those things where you have this conversation and it's more people than not in the same type of situation, and then the
Hmm.
fact that it was of course race always comes to play in basically everything because race is a part of the fabric of our nation.
Hmm.
It was a white lady who was venting and talking about her family, so
Hmm.
then you have that old other piece, and you're like, well, at least you have a home, or
Hmm.
it really
Hmm.
was just like, let this lady vent. What she's talking about is true for millions of people. There are a
Hmm.
lot of people in this situation. A lot of this could be combated by one, the uber wealthy paying their fair share in
Sure.
taxes,
Absolutely.
corporates not being so freaking greedy,
Hmm.
the government, using our tax dollars at home to
Hmm.
help, its citizens, instead of, rallying around that or just having basic levels of empathy for this woman who is obviously struggling and
Hmm.
just, having a moment. It goes into this whole, diatribe of people, like I said, basically having a pour off.
Hmm. Hmm. Yep.
So,
Sounds about right for Twitter. So all that to say, it makes sense to say this is a not a litmus test, but in a sense, the sense that you get from Americans and our consumerism and commercialism and all the C's, capitalism, right? But at the same time, you got to be careful over on Twitter because that will steer you into, this um, joining the herd and the hive
hmm
mind mentality to where you can't, if somebody were to come in after she made this quote and said, "Hey, she's not saying anything personal about how any of y'all are living. She's just giving her personal experience. Of course, yours is going to be different because you're not the same person." Oh, shut up. You just think you better than us. So, even if you could, kind of like you said, celebrate the fact that they're trying, celebrate the fact that they are haven't given up, apparently, no, that's not what you can't do that because
Right.
the hive mind says you ain't poor enough to be on Twitter doing videos. So
Right.
you stay quiet instead of saying, "Hey, y'all, relax."
Really relax. But yeah. So I think especially more as we get deeper into the holiday season, I think we'll likely see more of these types of conversations because it's holiday, people want to be festive, and every person, whether you're a parent or not, want to be able to do things for the holidays, give gifts, those types of things, and it's just getting harder and harder to do that. And then we have this election upcoming, and people are kind of going off about that, and it's a lot of things feeding into the way that we navigate society and just live our individual lives, just living.
Yeah,
And it's really unfortunate, it's really sad, to see people struggling,
right.
and then
And
to see people pile on them for venting or just
Right.
needing an outlet
Right.
to blow off steam or just say this sucks and this is what I'm going through.
Right. We, in addition to that, we are not doing ourselves a favor by, like you mentioned, delaying our instant gratification. In addition to all the things you mentioned, rich people paying their taxes, corporations not being so greedy, government officials, always worried about being reelected versus doing what's best for their constituents. We get all that. We know that's not changing. So it's like,
Right.
what do we do? Do we deal with it? Or do we like, look, we've got to change. And unfortunately, it's going to come from the bottom, the people saying, you know what, we're not going to be suckered into spending all of our money on Christmas. And we're not going to get suckered into feeling like we have to have the latest and greatest phone or gadget or computer or whatever the case may be. Or I'm not going to feel some kind of way about, we re-wearing outfits or getting outfits secondhand,
Yeah.
because these companies, our society, capitalism does a very good job of having you believe if you don't have a new car, if you don't have a house every 5 years, if you don't have a car, which is crazy, the fact that people who own homes will move within like 5 years and get another mortgage for 30 years. And then they'll do it again and they'll do it like 3 or 4 times. I'm
That's
not talking about,
insane.
yeah, I'm talking about military folks. And I'm not talking about people who file for bankruptcy. And I'm not talking about somebody getting a divorce. I'm talking about, people with, well to do, can afford it, will automatically just upgrade instead of like, look, this is the house, right? you know,
This is where we're going to be.
and people are moving into new houses with bigger mortgages, longer mortgages, as fast as people are buying cars. Before, it was kind of like on average, people get a car every 5 years,
Hmm.
whether they want to pay the note or not. And it's just crazy. All that to say, I'm getting long winded, but all that to say, help is not coming.
Yeah.
So we, the people, are going to have to push back
Yeah.
against this idea of, like we mentioned, this instant gratification. And we're going to have to get back to putting money in envelopes, putting money under the mattress, putting money in the safe. Don't put it in the bank. Don't put it on your credit cards. Like, spend cash. And if you are seeing the money leave your hand, you're less likely you're more likely to hold on to the money versus just putting your phone on the thing. And you're really not seeing the effect of that money
Yeah.
until, like you said, pay period.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's why I wasn't too pressed that I didn't get anything for Black Friday. I'm like, it's fine. I
Mhm.
buy stuff, throughout the year.
Yeah.
I buy the things that I like or the things that I want. It's really I've gotten to the point where now it's no need to feed into these type of sales or events or these kind of things because for me, like I said, I get stuff throughout. And again, it's one of those things where people are buying into the hype. They want to be able to say, yeah, for Black Friday, I bought 10 things or Prime Day. It's it's very much giving I'm doing this for the benefit of someone else. Not necessarily that they even need it or they even want it. It's just to say that they got it or they did it just to be a part of, I think you mentioned the word hive before, just to be a part of the hive, to be buzzing you know, in the echo chamber of what's going on in society. And it's really not doing a lot of benefit um, to people. It's just honestly putting more stress because those bills are going to come due. You are going to have to pay them. All the Clarinas, all of the Affirms, they're going to add up and catch up. All the Black Friday on the credit cards and, all that stuff. It's eventually going to come due.
Hmm.
So mind your P's and your Q's because I think we are in for some very interesting days ahead. So, you know, not watching your pockets, telling what to do with your money, but, just be mindful and aware of the world around you, so to speak. with that, I think that is going to wrap up the Snobbish show, unless you have anything else you wanted to get in there and talk about, Brother Tech.
Nope.
Cool. Well, we want to definitely thank you for tuning in and for subscribing to the show and allowing us to bring you this additional content.
Yep.
We're going to take a quick break before we get into the recorded show.